Hello, welcome to the Is It Just Me podcast. I am your host, Dr. Angie Inge. This podcast will entail truthful, transparent conversation about everyday life and the lessons learned. This podcast is for everyone from teenagers to the elderly. Although some topics may be rated R, every conversation is based on living life and learning life lessons. Today's topic, we're going to discuss taking accountability. And when I say taking accountability, we're going to talk about what does it mean to take accountability? And why is it so hard for some people to take accountability? And how do people learn to become more accountable? But before we start, I always like to state this disclaimer that I am not an expert and everything discussed is based on the independent opinion and reality of myself. Accountability. That is difficult for so many people for so many different reasons. But today we're going to focus on what does it mean to take accountability. And taking accountability means to me that you're taking ownership of what happened as a result of your choice or your action. So, based on the situation or the event that happened, you are able to take accountability and you are able to take ownership of the role that you played in that situation or that event. That's what taking accountability means. It doesn't mean that you're taking accountability, but you're also deflecting blame on someone else. To be able to take accountability, you're wholeheartedly taking ownership of the role that you played in a certain event or situation. Now, why is it so hard for so many people to take accountability? Honestly, to me, I feel that people just don't want to own up to their shit and they don't want to be honest about the role that they played when things go wrong. It's hard for so many people to be transparent and to be honest about the role that they played in certain instances and certain events or when things happen, especially when it's something negative. They don't want to look at themselves and they don't want to reflect on the role that they played and how their actions or lack thereof led to the negative situation or the incident or the thing happening. This is why I feel people don't take accountability. It's like a lot of people don't want to own up to their shit. And a lot of people are not honest with themselves and who they really are. So for some people, taking accountability requires you to self reflect and for you to look at yourself to see the role that you played in that incident. I always was the person that knew how to take accountability for the role that I played in any situation. So if I did something or I said something, I always was the type of person to be like, okay, yeah, I did say that, or oh, yes, I did do that. And I think for the most part, that's where a lot of friction arises with me and some people because they're not in a place to whereas they're going to take full ownership. I've always been the person and I live by this that I've never been in he said she said and I've never been in he said she said because anything that I've ever said, I stand on what I said. I'll say it to you. If I said it about you, I'll tell you and anyone else who asks me. So conflict never came from me being able to take accountability. My conflict came from other individuals not being able to take accountability and for me overplaying my part in different relationships or friendships and me not really sitting back and analyzing the situation or the relationship for what it was, but me overextending myself to people and it's not being reciprocated. And then after a while, when something happens and it comes out, and you sit back and you start self reflecting, and you're like, maybe this guy wasn't really that into me. All of the signs were there, but because I overlooked certain things and I was blind to certain things, not intentional. I wouldn't say it was intentional. I think it's just I always try to see the good in people. So little minute things I don't make into a big thing, but what I've learned is that little minute things turn into big things. So it's difficult for so many people to take accountability, in my opinion, because they don't want to be honest with themselves and they don't want to take ownership of their bullshit and they don't want to take ownership of the way that they contributed to a situation or to an event, especially if it was something negative. And that's most people. And it took me a very long time to realize that a lot of people don't want to hold themselves accountable. A lot of people want to walk around and play the victim and they want the sympathy card and they don't want to take accountability. I always say I can take accountability for what I said. I'll have a conversation about the situation. And if I did something wrong, for those of you that know me personally, I'm very sarcastic and I joke all the time. But sometimes me joking have hurt people's feelings. And if someone let me know that, I'm quick to be like, you know what? I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. You know, my bad. I apologize. And I mean it. So I think that's where the disconnect between so many people comes. It's like they don't want to take ownership of what they did, and they just don't know how to be transparent and be honest. One of my biggest pet peeves with people that swear that they're taking accountability is when someone apologizes to you and then they say, but. Be like, oh, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't have. That negates the whole apology. You can't apologize to someone and throw but in there. Or you can't apologize to someone and tell them, well, I only did that because you did so and so. That negates the whole apology. And if someone ever apologizes to me like that, they might as well just bury their head in the sand because I'm not accepting that. So, how do people learn to become more accountable for their actions? There's several ways that individuals can learn to be accountable. Just because you're not a person who takes accountability doesn't mean that you have to stay that way and you're going to die being someone that always wants to play the victim. So, the first way that you can learn to take accountability is you have to be honest with yourself and you have to look at how you contributed to that problem or that incident or that event. Everyone plays a role or a part in certain things. How did you contribute to that incident or that event that took place? You have to be able to sit back and be honest about how you contributed to an incident that took place. I have a bunch of stories that I can give, but I'm going to give one quick synopsis of a situation that transpired with a couple of relatives of mine. The role that I played in the conflict was I initiated a text message in our family group text. And it was directed at one individual. I was asking a question, but it was a family group text. So I can admit that the role that I played in that was that I initiated the question in that group text. Now, the consequences that came from that question, in my opinion, were unnecessary and was like way off. But I can sit back and say, okay, I see how I contributed to the conflict. So you have to be able to sit back and look at how you contributed to the problem. You don't blame others or make excuses for the role that you played in that conflict or in that problem or in that event. Take ownership. Like I said, I initiated the question in the group text. I own it. I asked the question in that group text. But I'm glad that I did ask that question because people's feelings were revealed, not people, but the individual's feelings were revealed in that message by me just asking that question. But I know that the role I played was asking that question. When you do or say something that's wrong, apologize and mean it. I'm the type of individual that if I do something to hurt somebody's feelings and it's not intentional, I am definitely going to say, my bad. I apologize. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings or I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I had to grow to get to this place that I am today because I wasn't always like that. I was always a person that could take accountability, but I wasn't always a person that would be able to apologize off of a joke because I would be like, well, bitch, I was just joking. Like, it's not that serious. I was that type of person. But as I've gotten older, I realized like something that's not serious to me may be serious to someone else. And I don't want to minimize how they feel about something. So I'm definitely going to apologize. And I'm going to make it my business to stand on my apology and mean what I say. Be committed to your words. If you say you're going to do something or not do something, stand on it. So when you apologize to someone and you tell them that you're sorry for something or you're giving them an apology, and let's say in that apology it says, you know what, I'm not going to do it again. Stand on it. Don't do it again. If I tell you I'm not going to do something, I'm not going to do something. Now, there are times when someone might say, oh, I'm not going to do something. And maybe later on down the line or a year or two, I don't want to put a time frame on it, but let's say they do it again. That's for you, the person who felt some type of way, who received the apology from that person, to say, hey, this is the second time you did that. The last time X, Y, and Z. So that way it won't continuously happen. Because sometimes you definitely have to check a situation in that moment for individuals to understand that it's something that bothers you and you're serious about that issue. So again, be committed to your words. If you say you're going to do something or not going to do something, stand on it. To become a person who takes accountability, you do what you can to make amends when things go wrong. So if it's your fault, let me add that in there. You do what it takes to make amends when things go wrong, if it's your fault. What does that mean? That means that I'm going to use myself. If I said something to you and I hurt your feelings and you let me know that I hurt your feelings, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that you understand how I'm really sorry, sincerely, that I'm sorry, I apologize, and that I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I'm going to do whatever it takes. Now, I'm not going to chase you around and I'm not going to sniff under your ass. I'm not going to do all those things. However, I am going to be an adult and I'm going to address what you said. You let me know that I hurt your feelings. I'm letting you know I didn't mean to. I apologize. Now, if you choose to carry it on and you choose to be mad 8 months down the line, that's not a me problem. That's a you problem. And I already said that I was sorry. But if it takes you 8 months to get over me hurting your feelings, it's nothing that I can do about that. I just know that we're not meant to be in each other's lives and we're not going to have a relationship from there on because I'm the type of individual that we're going to deal with the issue at hand and we're going to move on from it. If it takes you 8 months to move on from something that you said I did 8 months ago, you're not a person that's for me. And that's just my personal opinion on it. And I'm not trying to tell someone how long it should take them to get over something. But if you value a relationship or you value a friendship, it shouldn't take you 8 months to get over something, to want to be back cool or to hang out or to converse with someone again. It should not. Again, this is all my personal opinion. Be open and transparent. In order to be able to be a person who's accountable, you have to be open and you have to be transparent. And that does not mean that you have to tell all your business or you have to let everybody know what's going on in your life. That means you're being open and transparent about the issue at hand, what took place, and the role that you played and what took place. You're being honest about the situation, very transparent about the situation. There is no hidden agenda. There is no hidden feelings. There is no, you're saying things, but you don't really mean it. There's none of that. You're being very open and transparent about the situation. To become a person who takes accountability, make sure you're clear about your role and responsibility in the relationship or the friendship. In certain relationships, I have definitely overplayed my part in friendships. And when I say I overplayed my part, it was I was a friend to people who weren't a friend to me, who didn't reciprocate, but I continued to be a friend to them and they weren't to me. So you have to be clear and the roles that you play and what is your responsibility in that relationship in order to be a person that's accountable. And because I overplayed my part, it was just a lopsided, one sided situation. To be a person who becomes accountable, you have to recognize when you are being toxic to others. And I know that's a difficult thing because nobody wants to admit that they're the mean girl or that they're the mean guy, but it happens. And sometimes it's not intentional. Sometimes you could be having a bad day and somebody's talking to you and you're having a conversation and you just snap at them. You have to recognize that that person didn't make you upset and you have to own it. Like, oh, you know what? My bad. I didn't have a good day. Now, that doesn't mean that you can constantly do it and it's going to be accepted. But you have to just be able to recognize when you're being a toxic person. I used to be a very toxic individual. My anger was on a trillion. So I used to be very toxic, and I can admit that. And growing and glowing and going through my years of maturing, I realized that I can't walk around putting my hands on people because they made me mad. That's not positive, and that's not trying to be a better person. So I definitely was that toxic person, and I was able to recognize when I was being that toxic person. So in order for you to be able to become a person that takes accountability, you have to recognize when you're being toxic. We all have been toxic at some point, and sometimes we might backslide. And that's when it's time for you to do your little tap on your shoulder, like, girl, you being toxic, or nigga, you being toxic, so that you can continue to learn and grow and move on to more positive stuff. Another thing, when you're trying to become a person who takes accountability, you need to learn to respond and not react. So I know there's going to be a few people that's like, what do you mean respond and not react? This is something that I'm still working on. This is why I got banned on my main social media page because I reacted to a comment that somebody put. I clapped back at him. He reported my comment and I got banned for bullying. Mind you, he came on my page talking shit to me. I just responded back. However, this is when this is when you need to learn to respond and not react. So I should have just never engaged and should have just blocked his ass. But I'm growing and glowing, so now I know. So instead of reacting, I should have just not responded, period. But learn to respond, like learn to communicate, not react to certain things. That helps you with being a person who becomes accountable because you're sitting there and you're listening or the incident has happened. And instead of you reacting to something, you're sitting down, you're processing the information, and then you're responding. When we react, sometimes it's just you hear something and it's boom, straight reaction. We need to, when you're becoming a person who can take accountability, you respond instead of reacting. And the most important thing that you're going to have to learn to do if you're an individual who does not know how to take accountability is you're going to have to learn to reflect. Self reflection is the number one key in becoming an individual who knows how to take accountability. Now, quite a few people swear to God that they self reflect on certain things and they know how to self reflect. And I be looking at them like it's impossible because you still a mess. Like you're still a miserable, mean individual. So in order to be able to be an individual who knows how to self reflect, you have to be transparent and honest with yourself about who you are as a person. I know an individual that I used to be cool with who will sit here and throw a bunch of memes out, put a bunch of memes on their social media, positive memes, but they're the most negative, miserable person in the world. Debbie Downer, hater, but always putting up these positive memes, trying to put it out there to others as if they're so positive, but they're really the most toxic, miserable individual. They need to seek therapy. They need some other shit aside from social media. They need therapy, but that's another story for another day. However, back to the topic at hand, self reflection. In order to be able to be an individual who takes accountability, you have to learn to self reflect. And when I say self reflect, I don't mean to be able to reflect on that one particular incident. I mean, you have to self reflect on you, yourself as a whole. You have to sit back and you have to play different scenarios in your head and you have to say, you know what, I could have did this different, or I could have said it this way, or maybe I should have watched my tone, or maybe I shouldn't have said it like this. And I'm a person who have gotten to a point where I can definitely self reflect. A couple of years ago, there was an incident with a relative of mine getting a damn text message. You know what? Maybe I should stop fucking texting because, baby. But anyway, I sent the text message expressing how I felt about a certain situation. And I started off the text message with, "You mad shady." Now, in hindsight, after the whole conversation went left and everything happened, I was able to self reflect and be like, you know what? My approach could have been different. And I attempted to rectify the way that I approached the situation. However, when I did that, I was already blocked. So we haven't spoken since. But I did attempt to rectify the situation because I was able to sit down and self reflect that, you know what, maybe you shouldn't approach the situation that way. Maybe your approach could have been different. Maybe the conversation would have went different if you would have approached it different. So, in order to be able to self reflect, you have to be honest and open about the role that you played in that situation or in that event. You have to self reflect honestly. You can't sit back and be delusional and have a self reflection like as if that's going to fix something because your delusion is not going to make something better if you're the problem. And sometimes a lot of you are the problem. I'm just saying. But still, there's work that can be done. You still can become a person who takes accountability. And being someone who takes accountability, you can't expect someone to be accountable when you don't take accountability yourself. How you expect someone to take accountability for their actions, but you don't take accountability for nothing and you always deflecting and blaming somebody for something, but you expect the people around you to take accountability? It does not work that way. So there's always room to grow. I always say it's never too late to grow. And glowing and growing, you can, if you're a person who does not take accountability, there's always room for you to take the necessary steps to become an individual who takes accountability. And I know, again, at times we may be blind to the part that we play in certain situations, and it might allow you to be mistreated and devalued. However, taking accountability is a two-way street. And when everyone is accountable for themselves, it leads to a healthier, happier, drama free relationship or friendship. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Is It Just Me podcast. I hope you join me next week where we'll be discussing parenting.